What is going on, YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2011 mixtape by the game. Basically, this project is called Hoodmorning, no typo, Candy Coronas, and it came out in the summer of 2011. Now, the thing about this particular project is the game put out like a triple mixtape at the beginning of 2011 called Perp and Patron, and there was also the Perp and Patron The Hangover. That was the part 3 to that mixtape series, I'd have to say. Pretty dope concept. I do remember that particular mixtape from back in the day. Definitely some heralded stuff there. The game basically dropped damn near 50 quality songs. It's just a pretty good heaping helping of some excellent stuff there. But I'd have to say he was getting ready to. Some of these 2010 and 2011 mixtapes were kind of primers for the Red album, which dropped later on in the summer of. Some of these 2010 and 2011 mixtapes were kind of primers for the Red album, which dropped later in the summer of 2011. Pretty good concept. We get that one in particular just because the Red album had some good stuff on there, like Drug Test and some of those type ones, and Martians vs. Goblins, some of those type pitches. But the game kind of switched his style up. He kind of changed up in the 2011. The game kind of changed up in the 2010s. He kind of shifted his sound compared to the stuff that he was doing, where albums like the documentary, LAX, and Doctor's Advocate all kind of had like a 2000s type sound. The game kind of had a different sound like the 2010s that just took me longer to get used to, and that started to happen. Maybe not so much with the 2010 mixtape Break Lights, but I would definitely have to say with this particular project, I tried downloading this way back in the day, and I just didn't really like any song off of it in particular. It just had a very different sound. There's just some productions on here that are just not as immediate, and this is probably one of the worser. I would say this is one of the worst, not one of the worst, but one of the worst produced kind of game projects that I've heard in a good while. I'd have to say this is a decent little project here, but it's not a classic by any means. I'd have to say there are some gems on here, but it just does not have that immediate kind of pitch of a sound that just has that immediate kind of draw effect that some of these other projects kind of did. And I kind of felt like that was the same problem with the Red album that I had back in the day. It was just the concept that it just didn't have the immediate factor of songs like Game's Pain and some of those type ones, in My Life with Lil Wayne on there and some of those type pitches, and songs like How We Do and some of those type ones, and Dreams and Hate It or Love It, some of those type pitches of the 2000s type first. So it took me a little bit longer to get used to 2010's game, but I'd have to say this is a pretty good concept. I did like Break Lights quite a bit. I reviewed that a couple years ago, but I wanted to get back to some more mixtapes by the game because he does have some original content on some of these type ones. There was at least a single on here called Uncle Otis. I'd have to say I do like the concept of that. I do like the concept of there being at least a little bit of promotion. It's just too bad that I didn't really care for Uncle Otis that much, which is kind of the concept about half the production on this particular project. So I just would have to say there's 20 songs on this particular mixtape. This is a pretty beefy mixtape, despite the fact that Game dropped like 50 songs back in January of 2011 with Perp and Patron. There's still some more songs to kind of get here, but it's just kind of the concept that I have to recommend about 10 of them, I would have to say. It's just kind of the concept about it. So basically, I'll recommend the 10 songs, and then we'll talk about the single, and then we'll talk about the songs to recommend here. So I just would have to say it's a dope enough concept. This is basically like a primer to like the Red album, I would have to say. Do appreciate some songs on here. It doesn't have, like I was saying, doesn't have that immediate factor, but I would still have to say it's some good quality. I would have to say it's a good quality factor just off this particular project. This is a different taste of what some stuff was kind of going along. The game was kind of fleshing out some 2010s trends as far as that pitch kind of happened, just with folks like Kendrick Lamar and J Rock and some of those type folks. Some of the, like, not necessarily like the affluence was kind of getting from those particular artists, but just some of the sounds that were kind of morphing in California sound in like the early 2010s. I don't know a full blown amount of these trending kind of early 2010s California artists, but I'd have to say it's just a good concept to kind of see some different pitches. This has the originality factor a little bit more down. But to basically talk about the songs I recommend on here, out of 20 songs, once again, I recommend 10. So the 10 songs I recommend would be Drug Test, which is kind of an almost song just because you can find. Drug Test is kind of an almost song just because you can find that on the Red album. Can You Believe It? Monsters in My Head. Wow. Standing on a Corner. I'm On, Ace of Spades, Fucked Up, She Wanna Have My Baby, and Rough. So basically, talk about some of these. The problem with this particular mixtape, at least some mixtapes, the Dat Piff version of this mixtape that I downloaded scrapped for the Dat Piff version of this mixtape scrapped 4 songs off this particular mixtape, so you can't listen to them on this particular file download that you got from Dat Piff. At least I'd have to say I think they're around somewhere, but I would have to say in certain cases they kind of did that just because of copyright, just because of the fact that Drug Test is on the Red album. And there's another song that Uncle Otis is another song that's not on there, but that was released as a street single, so I almost want to say that song was for sale or something like that. I don't know why 25 to Life and Ace of Spades were not on this particular mixtape as the download. I don't know if those were released for resale or something like that, but basically you're not missing too much because Uncle Otis is really not that good of a song, and neither is 25 to Life, I'd have to say. And Drug Test is a worthwhile song, but you can just get that on the Red Album. So the only real song that you're missing out on that wasn't on like the Dat Piff edition of this particular mixtape is just Ace of Spades. And this is a pretty nice one, I would have to say. It's definitely like a gleaming kind of club hit. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I'm just going to go ahead and talk about Uncle Otis. So Uncle Otis is kind of a poor kind of boom bap type beat. This is a soulful type tune that just didn't really have any sort of flair or real pizzazz about it, that just was very affable or catchy. There's some other songs like that on here, like Infrared and Red, some of those type ones that just don't have a good affability about them. There's tons of songs on here. Unfortunately, there's tons of songs on here that just have some poor productions and just don't jump off the page whatsoever, I'd have to suppose. But Uncle Otis was just kind of a street single that just didn't really build the buzz in a very good fashion, I'd have to suppose. I just didn't really like some of this kind of Def Jam, like 1986 kind of golden age of hip hop type boom bap type stuff that was kind of going along. Just the gold chains, the gold rope chain type aspect of certain things that just didn't really have a good fitting pitch for the game around this particular time. This was not that affable. I prefer Game on just more glossy type productions, more in like the G Funk and that type sound that he had on like Doctor's Advocate, LAX. I mean, I'm gonna have to listen to the Red Album, but I just question about some of that particular project because I just feel like the Perp and Patron mixtape that he dropped in early 2011 was just soaringly better than some of the stuff on here. But it's just kind of the concept. But so we'll go ahead and talk about some of these songs on here. Basically, to talk about Ace of Spades, which is a song I recommend, despite the fact that you can't get it on the Dat Piff mixtape, I'd have to say this is like a blurry kind of lounge lizard type music. I would have to say definitely appreciate this song quite a bit. So it is worth it to find the particular mixtape that has it if you can. I would say this is just a hooky and kind of butter smooth kind of evening flash of a song, I'd have to say. And this song is just an overall nice one, I'd have to say. So I definitely appreciate the hook on this particular song. It's just a real nice lounge lizard. This is just a real nice bar hopping and lounge lizard type tune, I would have to say. Real good concept, kind of get that one in particular. Just a real smooth type one, just kind of have for some good vocals and stuff like that. Just a real kind of nice one that just works pretty well. I really like the suaveness of this particular one. This reminds me of something. I would have said that Ludacris could have done a song like this, but there's other folks that probably would have. But it's just an interesting pitch to kind of get this one, just because there's not tons of rap music that does lounge lizard type tones as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with it. And Ace of Spades is a type of drink, so it's a pretty good concept to kind of see that one in particular. Just a nice suave type one to kind of get here. Definitely appreciate the pitch behind that one. She Wanna Have My Baby is a pretty highlighted one. Definitely enjoyed the Trey Songz vocals on this particular song. This is just a jittery kind of outing pizzazz of a song, I'd have to say. This is a good drinks up kind of song, definitely, and this just has some great Trey Songz vocals and a hook on there, I'd have to suppose. It's a real nice one to kind of get that particular one. This is like a very jittery song, but I do like the nightclub kind of appeal of this particular. This is a very jittery type song, but I do like the appeal and overall nightclub pizzazz of this particular song. And just a real nice one to kind of get jarred up to and stuff like that, I'd have to suppose. Real nice kind of electric pitch as far as that particularly kind of has with it. Just a real sparkly kind of one that just has a lot of pizzazz towards it, and just an overall electric type one that just has a lot of good affable energy and just kind of makes you want to get cranked and stuff like that. So it's just a pretty nice one. Definitely a smooth song for ladies as far as that pitch can happen. These are two good ones. Ace of Spades and She Wanna Have My Baby are definitely some good lady songs that kind of have just for some of that kind of summery type pizzazz as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. There are some other aspects on this particular mixtape also. Rough is a pretty nice one. This is like a sullen kind of pop rap pseudo ballad of a song, I'd have to say. Definitely appreciate this one. This has a decent kind of morose makeshift feel about it, I would definitely have to say. Definitely appreciate that particular concept. This is a sobering kind of song, and it's just some good ruminating on this particular type song. Yellow Wolf is on here, which is an interesting pitch. Yellow Wolf is on the song, which is an interesting pitch just because I don't know how many songs the Game and Yellow Wolf have done together, so it's a pretty good concept to get that one in particular. Definitely a hazy type one, just a real pop rap type tune that just really feels like something morose, that someone like Deuce would do, something like that. Deuce or definitely Yellow Wolf fits on this particular type song. Just a real kind of B.O.B. even would be a good pick for this type of song. It's something that reminds me of Airplanes from the Adventures of Bobby Ray from 2010. I'd have to suppose pretty good concept to get that one. Just a real sullen type tune that works pretty well. Fucked Up is a pretty nice one. This is definitely a dope one. This is like a residential kind of romping hazer of a song, I'd have to say. It's a good smoke one tune, I would definitely feel like, and this is just kind of an entry hangout kind of turn up song. I'd have to say, and it's just an overall pretty dope one. So I definitely appreciate the concept of this particular one. This one's just kind of around the neighborhood. This just reminds me of a song you'd listen to when watching like the Friday movies in like the 2010s, something of that relative pitch. Just a real nice hangout type song to kind of get just some residential type tunes just for smokage and stuff like that. Just some hazy kind of evening fare as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Just a real nice one, just around the neighborhood, stuff like that, smoking a stogie, getting some snackage, evening kind of residential type city hopping as far as that pitch kind of happens with it, I'd have to say. Another real morose highlight on here is Monsters in My Head. Definitely like this one. This has one of the best beats on this whole mixtape, I'd have to say. Definitely one of the best songs on the overall project, I'd have to suppose. Definitely a pretty good concept for that. It's like a darker kind of morose type gem. I would definitely feel like this song has character, and it's just a good murky kind of autumn stretcher, I would feel like. So this is definitely a highlighted one. This is another surprising one to kind of have the game on, in addition to like I would have. There's another song like Rough is kind of an interesting one for the game. I feel like Monsters in My Head is another interesting one for the game, just because of the certain pitch that it kind of particularly has. This almost feels like a horrorcore type song. I'd say it's not really horrorcore in terms of the lyricism. I just would have to say it's just a good concept, just because some of this ruminating works pretty well. I forget that the game's pretty good at some of these ruminating type tunes. He's done it in the past. It's just an interesting concept because he doesn't oftenly do it. So I do like and appreciate the particular concept on this particular. I do like and appreciate the particular concept on this sort of song. It definitely works pretty heavily, I'd have to say. Standing on the Corner is another highlighted one. Definitely like this one quite a bit. This is another nice one, kind of similar to like Fucked Up, and this is another kind of city romping type one, residential type hopping one like Fucked Up and I'm On, some of those particular type ones. I'd say Standing on the Corner is like a good kind of evening outing flash. I would have to say this is some city stepping, and it's just a residential bopper, I would definitely feel like. So this is a pretty nice highlighted one. This has Wiz Khalifa and B.O.B. on there, which is a pretty good pitch. The thing I like about the game is just the fact that he had the budget to get the artists that he wanted to fuck with on a mixtape. So in a lot of cases, some of these mixtape songs feel like album songs. Just in a lot of cases, some of these mixtape type songs feel like album songs just because of the pitch of how quality that they are, just in like just in terms of like the sereneness of like the productions and stuff like that, I'd have to suppose. Now I realize that there are some poor ones on here that really feel like cruddy and stuff like that, and aren't anywhere near like album quality in terms of like the quality that they have just within that particular pitch. But I would still have to say the ones that are good are pretty damn good, I'd have to suppose. So it's just some good concept to get some of these, I would definitely feel like. So it's a dope concept for that. I would have to say that I don't know if I talked about Can You Believe It, but this is another highlighted one. This has Lil Wayne and Birdman on there, so it's a pretty good pitch to get this one in particular. I do like the Game and Lil Wayne type songs. These are always some good ones as far as that pitch can happen. Songs like Sue Woo and some of those type ones, I'd have to say. And there's a song My Life, something like that. I forget the absolute name, but it was on LAX. It's another nice one. But this one's basically like a blurry kind of summer malaise of a song, I'd have to say. This is a good cruise out kind of hazer of a song, I'd have to suppose. And this is just a good out on the town kind of jazz of a song, I'd have to say. Definitely appreciate this one. This is just kind of a starry-eyed type one, definitely a pretty blurry type one, but it just kind of works as like a kind of almost, Can You Believe It works as like a California kind of promo type cut as far as that pitch kind of particularly happens with that. I just would have to say this is a good step out kind of tune, just looking a little bit jazzy and nifty as far as that particular pitch kind of happens with it. Just a dope concept kind of get this one, just a real starry-eyed type one that just has a lot of pizzazz about it. Just works good as like a cruise out type one. It's an overall kind of one for some pizzazz as far as that pitch kind of happens with this. I do appreciate this one. It's a nice one, just a nice one for some jazzy living as far as that pitch kind of happens with it. And then I'm On is a pretty highlighted one. This is kind of an in-between type song, but I still like this one. This is like a decent kind of mid-paced luxury out and about type haze of a song, I would feel like. This is just kind of an in-between cut, I would definitely say, and this is just like a neighborhood bop and definitely a good song for some snacks, I would have to say. Yeah, there are definitely some out and about kind of on the town type tunes as far as some cityscaping and stuff like that. Just kind of regular and typical kind of errands getting done things. Just kind of regular day and typical kind of errand fare, just as far as that pitch kind of has with it. Just kind of the in-between type moments, just getting tasks done and stuff like that as far as those particular kind of pitches kind of have with it. Just some good errand type fare, I would have to say. Songs like I'm On, a little bit of Fucked Up, and songs like I'm On, Can You Believe It, and Standing on the Corner, some good examples of that, I would have to suppose. So it's a pretty good concept, get those in particular. So I would have to say those are the songs I recommend on here, at least 10 songs out of 20 on this particular mixtape, I would have to say. Just to talk about some of the ones I don't recommend on here, like there's just some ones that just have some really poor productions and just are not very executed. Just has some rather poor execution, just overall are not affable to kind of listen to and just don't have the immediate factor at all. These just don't jump off the page whatsoever. I have to say some songs like Infrared, really that has one of the worst beats on here. Uncle Otis is a really poor one. Both those have some poor boom bat type beats that just don't really do a good job. I was kind of disappointed by Graveyard. I thought that one would be more compelling, but it just wasn't. Didn't really jump off the page in terms of a cool song name like Graveyard to have some more affable type productions that could have went along with it, I'd have to say. I would have to say that songs like Out of Towner were just kind of some poor ones, just Out of Towner just for some awkward kind of ones that just didn't really have the affable type productions to really enhance that particular song. There's another one like The Town that kind of was like that as well. Just some of these were just kind of just poor ones. I kind of feel like this was kind of like a roundabout particular mixtape as far as some of these pitches kind of happened, just because I feel like the game was trying to get I feel like the game was trying to go for like better songwriting on this particular project, but a lot of these just didn't really have the compelling type nature of being able to do it. I mean, I definitely feel like some of these more ones of when they're more out on the town in like a more recreational type sense, it kind of has something, but some of these more homely type ones are just kind of more relaxed and steadfast type ones just didn't were not really pulled off that well. I feel like folks like Tupac and Afro Man, those are definitely some California artists. Too Short at particular times. E40 is pretty good at doing some of those more homely type tunes and keeping it interesting. But the game, I just didn't see it quite. But with the game, I just didn't see it quite as well with that particular aspect of him trying to do some of these. Some of these ones are just kind of in between type songs that just didn't really work well at all, and it just kind of detract. And these moments kind of detracted from and snagged the mixtape in particular. I'd have to say so. Me basically recommending 10 songs out of 20 on this particular mixtape. I'm gonna go ahead and give this mixtape like a 5.75 out of 10. I feel like the reason why I was getting a 5.75, I would almost give it a 6, but I feel like some of these songs are just not on the original mixtape as far as that particular kind of happens. I realize that it might be because of copyright, but I still think that some of these songs that if they're not for sale, I don't really see the reason as to why they were kind of detracted from the mixtape. So I'd have to say Ace of Spades should have been on there because I don't think that that was released as a single. Same thing with 25 to Life. I'd have to say Drug Test, I can understand. That's a good song, but that's kind of a reason why I didn't get a 6 is just because Drug Test is just to be found elsewhere. But I still recommend that song if you do find a mixtape that does have Drug Test on there, despite it being on the Red album. But I had to say it's just kind of comes at 5.75 out of 10. Like I was saying, there's just some poor ones on here that just kind of snagged the particular project, and I just didn't really appreciate some of these more boom bap type productions and just kind of more homely type fare, and this overall more homely type fare that just didn't really have the connection or affability or electricity that it needed. So I have to say the social score though, as a result, that's kind of tricky. I guess I'll give the social score like a 6.25 out of 10 because I do respect some of the concepts on here. Some of these songs that do hit pretty well. I'd have to say this is definitely a pretty balanced project just in terms of having some of these songs that do hit and some of these songs that don't, but it's just kind of the concept that it just needed probably a little bit more electricity. And I'm really surprised that a game single just didn't do better. Why he went with a song like Uncle Otis instead of a song like Ace of Spades or a song like Wow or something like that, one of those type ones that just would have had a lot more electric kind of energy, something of that sort of pitch. Just kind of the concept. I mean, the game does have the songwriting on here. He does have some affable type ones. He does still step out a little bit and have some of that decent nightlife and bottle popping type fares and moments for Ace of Spades and Champagne and things like that. Swisher, some of those type pitches. Just kind of the concept that just is not as heavy hitting. And on top of that, just it's very roundabout. It's just kind of it takes like the detoured kind of path to get to like its point of interest as far as that particular kind of happens. I just feel like the placement of some of these songs and just I feel like the arrangement behind some of these songs where most of the best songs are toward the end of the mixtape and just stuff like that. I'd have to suppose just an interesting concept, but it just doesn't have that immediate factor. And it's just like I was saying, just a roundabout kind of detoured type path as far as that pitch can happen. So it gets a 6.25 because there are some quality songs, but just you have to kind of search for them. So just I pay attention to the recommendations I had and just look for the Liddy type moments or just stuff that you're looking for. I'd look for the Liddy type moments and just bops overall to kind of have some of those particular pitches, and you'd be good and gravy as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. But I'd have to say, in terms of the future, like the game dropped an album in late 2022. I remember that particular project. I don't know what he's been up to since then, but I had to say there's some good stuff here, just within a relative pitch of kind of getting it. This is worth sifting through. I'd have to suppose it does have some gems on here. Just have to understand that it's not a classic. I'd have to say. I would recommend definitely fucking with Perp and Patron, all 50 of the songs, including the ones on The Hangover. I'd have to say that would be a pretty good concept to fuck with that one in particular. But I would have to say, yeah, I do recommend this project. I'm probably going to review some more game down the road, I'd have to say, but it's just kind of concept. It's just a little bit haphazard, but there is some gems on here if you sift through it enough, I'd have to say.